For years, he was Hollywood royalty, a global icon, the face of Braveheart, the adrenaline of Lethal Weapon, and the creative force behind one of the most revered war films ever made. Mel Gibson wasn't just famous, he was untouchable. Then came a night in July 2006, a DUI arrest, a few slurred words, and suddenly his name vanished from marquees, awards, circuits, and studio invites. What the world heard was disturbing enough: anti-Semitic rants, misogynistic comments, violent voicemails, a career-ending scandal, or so it seemed. But what if there was more to it? Why was that arrest so meticulously recorded? Who leaked the audio tapes? And why? Why did so many powerful figures in Hollywood who once embraced him now pretend he never existed? Was this a man simply destroyed by his own demons, or was he the target of something far more calculated? The fall of Mel Gibson wasn't just a scandal, it was a disappearance. And the truth behind it is much darker. Before the scandals, before the fame, there was a boy who moved across oceans twice before he turned 12. Mel Gerard Gibson was born in Peekskill, New York, in 1956, the sixth of 11 children in a devout Catholic family. His father, Hutton Gibson, was a deeply religious man, known for his strictness and his unorthodox beliefs, some of which would later draw public scrutiny. In 1968, amidst growing social unrest in America, and after winning a small fortune on Jeopardy, Hutton uprooted the entire family and moved them to Australia. He feared the moral decay of American society and wanted to shield his children from what he saw as a collapsing culture. It was a jarring shift for young Mel. One moment, he was a shy kid in upstate New York. The next, he was a stranger in a sunburnt country, struggling to fit in with a thick American accent and an outsider's awkwardness. He didn't speak much. Instead, he watched. He observed people. He mimicked them. And without even knowing it, he was training himself to become an actor. Home life was rigid and often silent. His father's influence loomed large. Discipline, fear of sin, and mistrust of modern society were part of the daily fabric. The Gibson household wasn't abusive in the conventional sense, but it was emotionally dense and heavy with expectation. For a young boy, the pressure to behave, to believe, to conform it was stifling. But Mel had a spark. At school, he dabbled in drama and found a strange comfort in pretending to be someone else. Teachers noticed it. So did his peers. When he stepped on stage, the quiet, guarded boy disappeared. In his place was a magnetic presence, raw, intense, and almost unnervingly real. He didn't know it yet, but he had found his escape. Mel Gibson didn't grow up dreaming of fame. In fact, acting came into his life almost by accident. After high school, it was his sister who secretly submitted an application for him to the National Institute of Dramatic Art, NIDA, in Sydney. He had no professional training, no serious ambitions, just a deep curiosity and a strange ability to disappear into roles. Against all odds, he was accepted. At NIDA, Mel was intense, brilliant, volatile. His classmates saw someone who could flip from charming to unhinged in seconds, and on stage, that unpredictability was electric. He threw himself into Shakespeare, into Greek tragedy, into tortured souls and broken men. He wasn't the polished leading man yet, but there was something undeniable burning beneath the surface. Then came Mad Max. Director George Miller saw Gibson in the waiting room, bruised and swollen from a bar fight the night before, and thought he looked perfect for a dystopian film about chaos. That role, as Max Rokitansky, would launch Gibson into stardom not just in Australia, but around the world. In the years that followed, he would become a household name with Gallipoli, The Year of Living Dangerously, and the explosive Lethal Weapon franchise. Audiences adored him. He was rugged, yet vulnerable, intense, yet charming. By the late 82nd, Mel Gibson was one of the most bankable stars on the planet. But he wasn't satisfied being just a movie star. In 1995, he directed and starred in Braveheart, a passion project that studios didn't believe in. It was long, violent, unapologetically emotional, and yet it won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Gibson wasn't just on top of the world, he owned it. And yet, behind the scenes, the cracks were already there. The stress, the drinking, the whispers of temper and control. He was rising, but not without shadows. And those shadows were getting darker. Mel Gibson had it all. Fame, power, awards, a legacy most actors would kill for. But behind the Hollywood smile was a man spiraling privately, painfully, and very publicly. The first cracks began to show in the early 2000s. Rumors swirled about his drinking. Some called it a habit, others a disease. Gibson admitted he had battled alcoholism since his youth, but the details were rarely made public until everything came crashing down. In July 2006, Mel Gibson was pulled over for driving under the influence in Malibu. That incident, on its surface, was tragic but typical. Another celebrity DUI. But the arrest report told a much darker story. Gibson allegedly launched into a drunken tirade, blaming Jews for all the wars in the world. The words were inflammatory, but it wasn't just what he said, it was how the world heard it. TMZ got the report. The story exploded. Within hours, he was labeled a bigot, a disgrace, an outcast. But who leaked it? Why was it released so quickly and with such surgical precision? That part remains murky, and things only got worse. In 2010, tapes surfaced audio recordings of Gibson screaming at his then-girlfriend, Oksana Grigorieva. The rage, the threats, the hateful slurs, it was all there, caught on tape. Gibson claimed the recordings were edited, that context was removed. But it didn't matter. The damage was irreversible. Studios dropped him overnight. Agents distanced themselves. Friends fell silent. Once one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, Mel Gibson became persona non grata. What made it sting even more was the silence from those who once praised him. No public defense, no second chances. While others in Hollywood weathered scandals, Gibson was erased. And quietly, in the shadows, he broke down. He withdrew from the spotlight, from directing, from everything. In interviews, he looked gaunt, uneasy, almost haunted. The rage that once electrified the screen now seemed like a wound that never healed. Was it accountability, or was it exile? The lines were blurred, but one thing was clear: Mel Gibson had fallen, and no one was reaching to pull him back up. For nearly a decade, Mel Gibson was invisible. No movie sets, no red carpets, no Oscar invites. He had gone from a $25 million per film megastar to someone Hollywood pretended never existed. In interviews, if his name came up, people changed the subject. Projects he once led were recast without announcement. His name became toxic, uttered only in hushed tones or with a wince. Behind closed doors, Gibson was unraveling. Friends said he rarely left his home. He drank heavily. He isolated himself. One of the few public sightings during that period showed him walking alone, disheveled, eyes down, as if trying to disappear in plain sight. There were lawsuits, custody battles, accusations. His relationships, both personal and professional, deteriorated. His face, once a symbol of strength, now bore the weight of guilt, rage, and loss. He attempted small returns, cameos, voice roles, minor directorial efforts, but the gates remained closed. Studios didn't want the controversy. The public, once enamored, didn't want the discomfort. And yet, through it all, he never gave up entirely. In private, he wrote, he sketched, he studied, and slowly, methodically, he developed a project, Hacksaw Ridge, a film about faith, violence, redemption, and sacrifice. a story he couldn't tell if he didn't know what it meant to fall. The production was a gamble. No major studio backed it at first, but when it finally premiered in 2016, something unthinkable happened. The film received a standing ovation. Critics praised it, audiences wept, and the Academy, those who had once turned their backs, nominated Gibson for Best Director. It was a return, but not a full redemption, because despite the awards, the headlines still carried the same asterisk. Mel Gibson, disgraced star, makes comeback. He had re-entered the frame, but only in the corner, and the question lingered, did he earn his way back, or simply force it? Today, Mel Gibson remains a paradox. To some, he's a genius filmmaker, a man who gave the world Braveheart and Hacksaw Ridge, stories of courage, conviction, and sacrifice. His films resonate with raw emotion and moral struggle, and his talent as an actor and director is undeniable. To others, he's a symbol of everything toxic in Hollywood, a reminder that brilliance doesn't excuse cruelty and that fame doesn't erase accountability. His past words still echo, his anger still colors every headline, his name still stirs discomfort. Even now, more than a decade after his fall, the industry hasn't truly forgiven him. His projects remain few and carefully managed. He's welcomed back just enough to work, but never enough to forget. But perhaps the greatest tragedy isn't the fall itself. It's that we still don't know who Mel Gibson really is. Was he destroyed by his own demons, or by a system that lifts people up only to tear them down? Did he change, or did we just move on? One thing is certain, Mel Gibson was never just a hero, nor just a villain. He was like so many of us, a man split down the middle, flawed, brilliant, broken, and still searching for redemption.